This is a wheated bourbon
Oh my gosh.
that I aged with Amburana staves, like this South American hardwood. So it made it kind of sweet, like.
So you made
cinnamon,
this?
Cinnamon. I helped flavor it. I would flavor it, like I barrel aged it myself. And so it used to be like super, super sweet, super strong, and now I've calmed it down so it resembles a bourbon again.
Oh,
but
amazing.
anyways, so it's a little sip.
All right. Oh, that's nice.
But you can get that. You kind of get that cinnamon toast crunchy thing I'm talking about.
yeah.
Little vanilla, little.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like drinking a Cinnabon.
I like that. It kind of reminds me of not totally reminds me a little bit of like Fernet, like that aftertaste of like Fernet that rests there. It's warm.
Without but without all the weird herbal licorice bizarro.
Yeah.
man.
Right.
I'm a
Without
cool
all of the pain
cool
that
bartender from the Bay Area. Angst.
all the pain that Fernet gives. Actually,
Fair enough.
especially
All
when I
the
was
pain
younger.
and all the love.
I used to brush my teeth that side. I used to think it was fantastic. This is Alcoholic Confessions with Rob Baptie this morning.
I feel that.
All right. It's
So,
good for
do
you.
you have a
amazing.
whole barrel at your house or no?
I don't. No. So the way that you do this is you actually buy. They're almost like wood shavings kind of, and so I put them in like a little food grade net bag and shove it in a mayonnaise jar because I'm a professional.
Yeah.
I like to recycle, and so and then you just taste it every couple of days, and at some point it hits its sweet spot, and you're like, oh, that's enough.
That's it. That's good. And then
that's
you
good.
put it in the decanter.
And then I put it in the
that what's
fancy Baccarat decanter.
It's very fancy.
Yeah,
And what's
so
the name? Is there like a name? Is it HateDust Bourbon? Like what is?
No, so I've done as part of my fundraising kind of adventure, I've done barrel picks, where I've worked with a distillery and they've sent me samples. I chose my favorite one and then we've put my logo on it and then sold those and given the proceeds away, to different charities and stuff. And so, but this is more just, this is hobbyist kind of rye. This is just kind of over the top, playing around the house with maybe a bourbon you don't like, but like this is really simple, and people cringe when I say this, but if you take like Wild Turkey 101, which is actually a fantastic bourbon, for just off the shelf, $23, you can find it everywhere. This is just kind of, it's kind of like adding bitters to a cocktail, right?
Okay.
It's a flavoring agent. And so to have a whole barrel of this, a barrel at barrel of, like a 5-year-old kind of bourbon, that's the yield on that's going to be like 260 bottles. Like 260 bottles would be a whole lot to deal with.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's illegal. So there's
that's true.
There's that whole
I
aspect.
didn't think about that part. But
Everybody's like, you ship bourbon? I'm like, no.
No.
I partner with the Prime Barrel. I partner with the Wine Spot out of New York, and so they're licensed, liquor distributors. They handle all that for me. I'm just the mouthpiece.
Speaking of which, right? I'm going to assume that
Speaking of witches,
all
Halloween
of the
is past.
sheer amount of people that are viewing this right now.
All 7.
Yeah, all 7 people that are
Nice.
like
Appreciate them.
my mom, right? That is watching this. What organization do you do? What does it do? Like, what is the purpose? Like, give us the elevator pitch.
No one has ever used the word organized in a sentence with me, as is evidenced by my lateness this morning. So, organization. My organization, about 9 years ago, I started my own nonprofit. It's called the HateDust Project. It's here in Merced, California, and I focus on kind of things that benefit kids within a community, veterans within a community. We do a lot of like sponsorship of like high school ag programs, high school sports programs. I was Ronald McDonald House kind of guy of the year a couple years ago. I've sponsored runs at Ronald McDonald House. I'm working on bringing Valley Children's Hospital here to Merced. I was one of the kind of I was the base founder for they started like a community foundation. And so, hopefully you'll see Valley Children's out there by the new hospital out there, past Yosemite and G and all that. That's coming. It's been paid for a while. Just COVID and construction delays and all that kind of nonsense. But anyways, I'm a one-man nonprofit. My wife helps me sometimes. Super sweet of her. She's a local business person here. She's the head of Travis Federal Credit Union, if you guys bank there.
We do.
So shout out to them.
And they're amazing.
She did great. Yeah, she is the antithesis of me. Boy, talking about apples and oranges getting together. Oh my God. So, anyways, that's kind of what I do. I do kind of fundraising for my local community that I had really been kind of disconnected from in my. I think I've been here just about 35 years, somewhere in there, and I just wasn't. I had tried like elks and lions and stuff, and what I realized is that like in any kind of community organization, you see like the same 10 people do everything, and it just kind of is what it is, like civic groups are really kind of fallen to the side, and there's a bunch of weird type A's kind of like me that end up taking on all the tasks and too many burdens. I'm sure you guys are totally unaware of that, so let me fill you in. It happens every day, and so I just kind of realized in doing some of that I work better by myself, and I work in crazy manic work bursts, So like I woke up at like 4 this morning. I recently retired, this past year. I shouldn't have to get up at 4 in the morning. And so, I'm I've got a big giant Facebook community group that I've built that's got about 11,000 members. So that's, I went to high school in a town of 4,000. So, I'm a mayor of a town that's twice as large, easily twice as large and it's not like, it's not like I'm on a like a bourbon lovers. It's fucking delicious.
It is really good. I know.
It's not like I'm on a bourbon lovers page and there's just all these people with this common interest. It's weird to have, essentially like an artist maker, because that's what I'm essentially a metal fabricator artist. It's weird to have like something where 10,000 plus people are there waiting for you to do something, dance monkey, like whatever it is, make something, sell something.
Because and I think it's clear, like your community, since it's on social media, right? It spans the world. Like people are engaging with you from all over the world based off of these things that you've created and this concept that you created.
Exactly, and it would have been fantastic had I brought one today, just to hold up in front of the camera and be like this. But so I make these little metal pig-shaped bottle openers, and those little metal pigs have shipped to 18 countries. Over the last 9 years, they've generated pretty decent revenue. I think my 9-year average per year has been $250K a year donated. So, I'm somewhere in the middle of year 9. I'm at 2.3 million given away. And so, I think folks see me at a community event. In the last maybe like 2 years, I've really like kind of tried to speak out to like, hey, like I'm not independently wealthy. I'm a retired guy, makes like $45K a year. Like, I just decided to kind of stick this thing out and figure it out, and I found a weird little niche, using Facebook, and I just work. I just do it I sell things that are 50 to like on average like 50 to like $250, and I just kind of take nickel, dimes, and quarters, and I just keep stacking them and stacking them and stacking them, and perseverance and grit wins, man. It takes takes grit and pressure to make a pearl. No grit, no pearl.
Truth. I have to dissect this for a minute, because
Please.
You're making you're retired, right? You're making $45,000 a year.
Correct.
You're making $250,000 a year and giving it away.
In order to make $250,000 a year and give it away, you have to make to buy the material. I ship everything. It's not like I'm going to the flea market here and, selling, so everything is shipped. So I'm probably grossing 3.25-ish, and so if you think about it, like if you had a part-time business, doing whatever, making plastic cups and putting people's logos on them. Sure. if you were a single person business owner, I was just talking to Al at I think it's called Delicate Touch, the framing guy there on whatever he's on 18th or whatever. I had him frame some pieces for me, and when I came in to pick up these pieces that I had framed yesterday, he's like, "Hey man, I just want to shake your hand real quick," and I was like, "Okay," and he's like, "My daughter was telling me about you, and she was talking about the building at Camp Green Meadows that's named after you and your wife." So he's like, "Man, that's fantastic," and I was like, "You looked me up?" I'm like, nobody looks me up. Really? I'm like, so I was like, "Hey, thank you. It was really nice of him." And so we got to talking, and he asked me kind of the same question you're asking me, like, holy crap, man, you give away a lot of money. I was like, yeah. So the easiest part about giving away a lot of money is that, and it's a weird disconnect, is that you have to disconnect yourself from the money objective. Mm-hmm. So I've just never really been about the money objective, which is obvious when, I sort of retired early and I hosed myself on my teacher retirement by not sticking it out till 60, but I just didn't want to hang in there for a retirement. I just kind of wanted to have some energy left in the tank to go explore other things and do other things. And so this is the thing I chose to do. And so in doing that, it was super hard for 8.5 of the last 9.5 years. I had a full-time job, and my side hustle was this $250,000 a year plus thing that I had created, and I'm aware enough of it to realize that lightning doesn't strike like this all the time, mm-hmm. right? I realize I've hit this weird niche, and I have this ability to kind of, generate some decent revenue. And so as long as folks are still kind of interested online, I should probably just ride that wave until I just fall off the board, so to speak, And so, but going back to, Al and the single business owner, if you were a guy, making cups or just making whatever, making watch bands, like whatever it was that you're doing, and you were making $250,000 a year, you'd be Godzilla.
Right.
And it was my second job, mm-hmm. And I felt at some point it was probably unfair to my staff, and, I used to be a school principal and stuff, and, to have this I realized that my attention was divided. And granted, I've got, obviously a buttload of energy, and I can multitask, but I think in fairness to everybody, I just kind of was like, hey, I'm not really money focused anyways. Let's retire and I'll just kind of do this thing, and maybe I won't feel all stressed out all the time.
I mean, my argument, right, is maybe this whole thing would not have caught on the way that it did if you were just a small business. Like a lot of
I think there's
the
an allure,
appeal, right? Is like people know that when they, participate in these auctions or they help you, they're helping mm-hmm. these other organizations that need the help. And so I think that I think is the switch, right? If you were just doing it, hey guys, I'm making these on my own, I don't know if people would engage as much as they have.
Not as much, but in fairness to like my friends that are doing it for profit, mm-hmm. they seem to be doing really well. Sure. They've got really nice shops. I've got, I'm in a 1954 garage with no air conditioning. I'm like, I would like a big, 2,000 square foot shop building and a piece of property that was paid for. And but yeah, I think, I think there's a charm to the idea that I used to explain. Kent Carcevar, who's the head of Ronald McDonald House in Fresno, sent me an annual report. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it's probably been 3, 4 now. Where in his letter for an annual report, a nonprofit organization kind of reports out kind of what's happened over the year and highlight the things within their year, and in his kind of note to his people, he thanked my wife and I, and I'm like, oh, it's super nice, right on, appreciate that. And then you go to the back of the annual report, and for nonprofits, they show their contributors at a certain level. And so, the way that works is that, top left is, the big numbers, and then it, kind of migrates down to whatever, the level is. And it's usually like $2,500 or whatever, like the report out number, is for their agency. And so it's a trip to see your name. My name was in the top 3.
Nice.
And I'm like, hey, all right, let's check this out. And so I look, and so above my name is McDonald's. And I'm like,
Yeah.
not for nothing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You're McDonald's.
Yeah.
Right.
You should be at the top of the list.
And then there was and I don't name I don't know the people's names, so we'll call them Smith. So Bob and Sally Smith Foundation. And I'm like, right on. Good job, Bob and Sally Smith.
Right.
And then there's Rob and Andrea Baptie. I'm like, hey. But that's not the thing that like keeps me in it. The thing that keeps me in it is I look further down the list and you see Bank of America.
Right.
You see PG&E.
Yeah.
You see these major, giant corporations. And I'm not naive. I know that they're probably donating to a lot of things.
Yeah.
I donate to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
They also generate a lot of revenue.
Yeah, they generate way more. Yeah, trust me. Yeah.
I mean, there's more than one of them in a garage, right?
The impact on them, right? And I've had that conversation with people that have come to ask us for money is that, you come to me and you say, hey, Rob, like, can you donate to my thing? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, the easiest way to get me to donate to your thing is just give me a table at your event. Yeah. Like, don't sell me on a table sponsorship. I mean, you can, but like the easiest thing is just like, hey, we're having this event. Would you like a table? And if I say yeah, then I'm probably going to come and I'm going to at least take care of the cost of the table and easily plus. But I think there's this. I don't know if people realize like it's just me, and so if you want me to donate $5,000 to a thing, you're asking me for like 10 work days, like you're asking me to go sit in my shop, for a solid week, 7 days, go make some stuff, sell it for you, ship it for you, stress out that, that's going to arrive and, do I have to replace it, fix it? I work with metal. I work with things like zirconium. You ever sanded zirconium, Andrew?
No, sir.
Yeah, check it out. It gets real freaking hot.
It doesn't
right?
sound like
and so, it burns, if you look at my fingers have, cuts and scars and mangles and, my knuckles are all bent up and stuff like. Yeah, it's because, I light my hands on fire. And people are like, well, you should wear gloves, dummy. And I'm like, no, because then you can't feel with the gloves. And it gets so hot, it burns through the glove. I've burned through leather. I've burned through, mechanic work gloves. So, wire mesh gloves. Like
I used to do that all the time when I was like a lighting designer. People are like, I'm like burning my hands on these lights that this huge theater incandescent lights.
Oh, sure.
And people are like, well, just wear gloves. I'm like, I can't wear gloves.
700. Yeah, because you can't tactile.
It's
a tactile thing. You can't feel it.
I can't feel it. Yeah. And then when every single time I've ever like burnt my hands like really bad, I had on gloves. They burnt through gloves. I was like ill prepared. Like one time I remember like I had a glove, I had a hole, touched the light, like burned the hell out of my hand. And then I'm on a ladder. So very simple. I'm like, ugh, and then I
got nowhere to go.
I grab onto like the grid at the last possible second.
Yeah, great.
But I'm like, people that are like, just wear gloves don't actually understand, I think, what it's like to actually work with your hands.
So there it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, as is evidence of my wife's love of, I have tons of shirts that have all these little holes because, I got a spark and I'm working. It's like, well, you should buy an apron. And I'm like, I have them. I just never, Yeah. It's like, it's like eye protection. It's safety, safety fifth.
Yeah.
There's bourbon and there's, television. And,
I have on glasses, so that's why that was always my reason.
Never had to worry about eye protection.
People ever
respirators. Respirators is the big one for me.
You should definitely.
And I run lasers a lot, right? So do you know what comes off of if you're like lasering? I laser a lot of titanium. Yeah. So do you know what comes off of titanium when you're lasering it? Yeah, neither does anybody else. Right. So we're in this like weird unknown of people are like, it's bad. I'm like, can't see it.
Yeah.
Is it?
Is it? And they're like, titanium has you'll see it say something, a couple numbers for LV, and it's like, that V is vanadium. I'm like, you know what vanadium is? And neither do I. But evidently, if you light it on fire to 1,000 degrees, breathing it's supposed to be bad.
Makes sense. I mean,
it makes sense.
I can see why.
I conceptually, I understand it, but I'm grinding away, and I'm like, oh, I should probably have a respirator on.
I should put a respirator on.
And you pick your nose, and it's got this weirdly, bluish green boogers. You're like, what the hell is that?
You came to Merced 35 years ago.
Yeah, I came here.
Was that part of your time in the Air Force?
I was an Air Force guy, and somehow Air Force logic. My father lived in Bishop and was dying of cancer, and my mom put in kind of behind my back, put me in for what's called a humanitarian reassignment, right? So I could be nearer to my dad. Well, if you know California at all, California's got the 5 or the 99 that run on one side of the Sierras, and 395 runs on the other side of the Sierras. Well, the military, failed to realize that for half of the year,
there's a mountain range there.
There's a mountain range in the middle there that you just can't exactly cross.
Right.
Yeah.
And so rather than send me to Edwards on the 395 side, where I could have just gone, straight up the road and been to my dad's, no problem, they put me here, with a mountain pass, full of snow in between us. So he subsequently passed, and I married a local girl, and it sucked the life out of me, and I've been here ever since. Dude, you know why you laughed? You laughed because you're married, and you know I'm not lying.
Hey, no.
And you recently just had a child. You
yeah.
should feel guilty because your wife had to go through 9 months of pain and suffering.
I do feel guilty every day. I feel guilty being here right now drinking bourbon with you, but sometimes you got to make sacrifices for the job. Sometimes.
So having a child was the sacrifice?
No, this right here. This is my sacrifice that I'm making for my family.
It's not even 11 in the morning.
But
That's perfect.
So how was that at Merced Atwater at the time with Castle there? Because I know that Castle was.
How was in one sense?
Well, the Air Force Base I know was a huge part of the community.
Absolutely, yeah. And so the Atwater demographic was hugely, military and military retirees. And so,
on Air Force bases, and because my dad was Air Force too. I spent a lot of time on Air Force bases, and Air Force bases really make up a huge portion of middle class, right? They sit there and they're the ones that are buying things.
Correct.
They're going to restaurants. They're sending their kids to the local schools. Yeah. Usually a lot of time Air Force bases are very engaged in their community. Yeah. And then then the government did what the government does, right? And they're like, well, they closed it down. And then, so what was that like too?
The economic impact was devastating for Atwater and even Merced. And it's a weird thing to live in this valley and to have a military industrial complex leaving your little town of 15,000, 20,000, whatever Atwater was at the time. That's a psychotic, they still have never recovered, and so, but then you look at Merced, Ragu left and McLean Pacific, and, Color Press used to be, if you couldn't do anything else, you could go out to kind of Color Press because, they were huge. The digital era is made them, I think, a quarter of the workforce they used to be 20 years ago. Wow. And so, all of those things are economically devastating, and I'm sure there's, a dozen agencies that I'm just not thinking of because I'm old and I'm an idiot, but there's of all the revenue that left for, the stretch from 95 to 2005, 2010. And once you start getting to kind of that era, then you have the economic breakdown of what happened with the real estate market here, where and maybe probably I can't remember when you came here.
I came in 2004, so I
was
there when everything
before it. Mm-hmm. So at that point, soon after you came in 2007, Merced, California. Money Magazine, cover of Money Magazine. Yeah. Most expensive place to live in America. It was on the cover. Yep. I tell people this, they're like, there's no way. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Not only is there a way, I'll explain how there is a way. The way was that the UC list came out. And the UC list said, hey, we're going to build in Merced. Mm-hmm. And the year prior was the largest cash return in stock market history at the time, all based on tech companies based out of San Jose. Those were like the largest revenue gains, right? And that's when you were seeing all these, internet startups and stuff, and you're hearing all these crazy stories. It was this crazy Silicon Valley money grab. And so what happened was, and I know, not only do I know this for like the crazy fact, like literally the house next door to me that was $80,000, that it's a little tiny house, maybe 1,000 foot, something like that. This like 27-year-old kid out of San Jose bought it for $245,000. Wow. I was like, bro, you what? Because the market just went crazy. And my house was worth like $435, and acres in McSwain used to be $50,000, and they were selling for $275,000 for an acre in a cow pasture. And I was like, there's this absurdity level. If I sell my house, the same house I'm still in, has never economically like come back to that point. If I'd have sold my house, in order for me to like kind of marginally upgrade, maybe go kind of McSwain area, like house on an acre, it was $750,000. Wow. And then you remember, because you were here.
Yep.
We were number, depending on what day you looked, we were number 3 or 4 in the nation on foreclosures. We were no longer, and so I'll go back to the because it's important. How did we get on the cover of Money Magazine or Fortune, whatever it was? Most expensive place to live in America. It was housing cost, living cost, compared to household income. The ratio was so out of whack because Silicon Valley came in here buying all these houses on spec that the UC was going to blow up that market and all these people were going to come in, that it caused this crazy disparity. That disparity has never left us. So now, we look around, Merced. So I had a friend visiting yesterday from Minnesota. When the customer's off my page, he's like, "Hey man, can I come down, and check out your shop and stuff?" And I'm like, "Sure, come on down, come make a pig. We'll have a great time." And so we went to Mariscos El Nacho out on 140, right? The best ceviche campechana you can get in Merced. I love those guys. As we were coming back, I drove them here through downtown, and kind of talked about, hey, there's some kind of, if you want to call it revitalization,
development, revitalization,
and he was like, well, like what are they doing to promote that? And I'm like, well, that's a super interesting question. So we have a UC here. He's like, really? There's a UC here? And he used to live here in California. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, but it seems like the impact of that, like it's really like a weird thing to kind of measure. So there's some, influence with schooling and that sort of thing. And you have this giant complex out there now out the lake. Like I remember when it was like, 3 buildings. Yeah. It ain't 3 buildings anymore. Yep. And their footprint is gigantic. But you don't, but when you try to transfer that to engaging your downtown and engaging your community, like what does that really look like? Right. Kids aren't taking the bus into town to be civically engaged. They're looking for some nighttime entertainment. They want to come get some food. So I'm sure there's there's an economic impact there, but they're not buying homes. I don't know that they're staying here professionally. And really that's kind of the hope, I think, with, the UC is that, hey, we're building these engineering and medical professionals and that they would at some point engage in your community, but we don't have the economic opportunities for them to engage in. It left
once Castle closed,
and no one's developing. And so then the horrible thing with a base closure is that when a base closes, really for the most part, most of those buildings are outdated. And so we have one of the largest runways on the West Coast. You could literally, no joke, it used to be an alternate landing spot for the space shuttle. Wow. Right? Edwards was one, Castle was the other, because that runway out there is crazy thick. Yeah. You can land Hercules. Like they land Air Force One out there.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, when they brought Air Force One, right, when they brought the Obamas out to go to Yosemite, if you guys remember that, dude, they brought in a C-5 with Marine Corps One, the helicopter inside of it, and all the armored vehicles for the CIA guys. Wow. They brought like 3 of those things in. So when you can land airplanes that are loaded with tanks and armored vehicles and all that on your runway, if you can land the space shuttle on your own, that's a big deal. So really, like, what makes sense is like, how are we not moving commercial freight out of Castle? And so I don't remember the gentleman's name from like the redevelopment agency out there, but really there's this whole discussion about how I don't have enough bourbon left in my glass.
No, that's true.
About that.
Yeah. We're saving that discussion for later.
And so there's this whole discussion about, we'll take like stone fruit, so if you're shipping, peaches, cherries, like whatever out of this valley, we draw a 100-mile circle around us. It's half the nation's ag, half the nation's dairy. The amount of stone fruit loss is in the hundreds of millions and into the low billions number of just loss getting from here to San Jose, where there's commercial food shipping, whey products going to Korea, Japan, kind of Asian markets, right? Where like a Hilmar cheese, that's like a huge producer, Gallo, they could really benefit from and are shipping their product, but them shipping their product to San Jose versus coming out of Castle, there's a huge economic difference there. The stone fruit, and so I'll go back to stone fruit, right? So if you had cold storage here at Castle, just that industry alone. But the problem is that there's no one wants to shell out a couple $1 million to update the buildings with, fire, like all the fire code stuff, new halon or like whatever that those systems are called. You could have airframe repair here, where you're repairing airplanes and doing that thing, but none of those buildings are up to spec, and so the economic investment that it would take to make Castle a commercially viable agent that would totally economically change this whole freaking area. An interchange to get to the UC with a tire shop and was it Tractor Supply? I'm trying to think of what they put out there. And fast food place. Like that's not going to change it. No. The road structure to get out to the UC is a good thing.
Yeah.
But that road structure needs to go from the UC. It needs to go out past the federal pin, backside of Atwater, to Castle, and then there needs to be a road that nobody is going to ship product down. Is it Buhack? Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Buhack Colony, right? Buhack High School. Yeah. No shipper on earth is going to want to sit in line while Mrs. Hypes is dropping off little Billy at high school.
Yeah,
they're not, and therein lies the rub, right? And so, like, we look at the disaster that we have in the 99 reconstruction going through here. Like, you think that's going to cause you some heartache? Wait till they have to carve a road. Like, in order for this place to thrive, they need to carve a road that goes from 99, that doesn't have stoplights and goes through residential and school districts, out around Castle, go from Castle out around, out around the Fed. When I say the Fed, the federal penitentiary. Back to the UC, and then UC has that expressway now. Like, there's a huge roadblock until that development happens, and that development can't happen fast enough. That development probably should have happened the day that they shut down Castle. They should have been like, we're in a world of hurt here, because it's not out. Not only is Atwater going to benefit, like Merced's going to benefit, like. There would be some huge large-scale employment opportunities for blue-collar, real-deal jobs that aren't retail-based, that aren't state or federal subsistence-based. And until we have that, until we have leadership that pushes for that type of development, and until we have a community of people that I don't know how to say this. I don't think it's like the community. I like, if you don't have like a workforce that's kind of ready for that, it's hard for a large scale developer to come in and be like, oh yeah, this could be a reality.
Yeah.
And so it's a weird conundrum, like you suffer because you don't have those things, but you suffer because you don't have those things. Like you you're never going to become economically viable to create those things unless you had those things. And we're so far down the train of not developing that capacity, it just gets more and more expensive, which makes the task more and more daunting, and which makes you feel more and more helpless. And so, yeah, I feel for public officials that want to make change, but the capacity to make that change isn't present here. Yeah. It from what I can see, and there are pieces that are slowly coming about, but until you have those large scale infrastructure pieces done, no one's going to want to come and build here. No one's going to want to come and invest here. And so, like, who foots that bill? And so, the way you foot that bill is you go out for like bonds and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Nobody in the 7% home loan, stock market downturn era wants to make that kind of investment, because it's just like, eek, the cheap capital stuff and all that. But the where I'm really coming from is hey, back when money was 2%, ain't nobody in your life going to give you 2%. Yeah. As a civic duty, some leadership should have been like, hey, we should probably take advantage of this cheap money right now. Right. Go get some money and start kind of pushing these things. And maybe they did. Maybe I'm, that's something I'm unaware of, but I don't see any projects that say, hey, that's going to happen. Super rough.
Well, so you got out of you got married.
I got married
to a wonderful person.
I got married to a wonderful person. This is true. When I say she sucked the life out of me, it's just the fact that I didn't move.
It's amazing that she's willing to put up with you.
Wow. Let me tell you something. For those of you that are married out there, and that's a lot of us, it takes two to tango. So in order to bring out the best in me, you're bringing out the best in you. Oh, boy. I love my wife.
You worked in the school system for a while.
I did work in the school system for a decent amount. I actually worked in the private sector first. I had the greatest job on earth. I tell people about it all the time. I'll tell you right now, I pour all this delicious bourbon. It was, Andrew, you're thin. You want to restock? Are you okay?
You could.
That's a little half.
A little bit more. I don't
So when I first got out of the service, I went to work for 84 Lumber for $5 an hour, driving a forklift outside. And when you get out of the military, you don't really want to deal with rules and structure and nonsense. And believe it or not, I got out of the military because it wasn't rule or structured enough for me. So I went to work for 84 Lumber out there on 59. I think there's like a recycling thing in there now, in that building. And $5 an hour, I built contractor loads in big flatbed trucks. They'd give me a shopping list in the morning. They'd say, hey, needs a bunch of drywall and nails and screws and mud and tape and some 2x4s and all that building stuff. So I put all the building stuff on the truck, and it was fantastic because I would come in the morning and I would bet myself I could say less than 10 words in a day. And so I'd come in the morning and at first it was fantastic because nobody knew what I was doing. And so they'd come in and they'd be like, morning, Rob. And I'd be like, just growl at them, and I did 6 years. I went in the military when I was 17. Holy smoke. Okay. That's not annoying. And it's a spam risk. You want to take that for me? And so I would go in the morning and I would literally bet myself I could say less than 10 words. And so they'd be like, hey, what'd you do yesterday? I would just turn and just walk away, And so then the truck drivers that would bring in material, so that when I wasn't building contractor loads, I would have to offload the trucks. And the truck guys, like the commercial vendors, coming in and dropping off, wood and stuff, they caught on. And then it was super fun because they would just try to crack me up, and they would say the most outrageous, foul stuff to me. And I had
just to
try to get me. Oh yeah, they would pitch me just softballs, and I was just I'm biting my lip. And there were points where I would laugh so hard I would literally cry at the absurd nonsense that they would say to me. And so so I worked for 84 Lumber. I worked out at Color Press for a short term, building phone books. I left there and I knew enough about supply being in the military that I lied my way into a job at E&J Gallo, world's largest winery. Okay. So I was out on the west side, out on the backside of Livingston at the winery. I was the winery supply guy. So, I had a, $4 million bench stock that I was responsible for. And yeah, it was super, it was military-like in the fact that, I worked, grapes come in, there's it's what they call crush. And I would work 7 days a week, 12 to 16 hours a day. And so when, you're a young guy, I was probably 23, just before my 24th birthday, I got out of the service and, suddenly you're making, when you have a check that's 40 hours regular, 40 hours of time and a half, and then another 4, 6, 8, 12 hours of double time, like you think you're Godzilla. Yeah. And then you learn about tax structure, and you learn how they tax that time and a half, and you're like, dude, I had 96 hours last week. How's my paycheck only like $2,300? I'm like, I grossed like $7,000. I'm like, where did it all go? Oh yeah, it was her. So then I went from Gallo. I raced bicycles for a year. I managed a bicycle team for almost a year. I used to be built a whole lot different. I'm double the size of I was back then. And so, and then at some point I decided, hey, I've got this GI Bill money. I sat down with the counselor and I decided to go to school. So I went to here in Merced College, did my AA 1 year, all my transfer units. And then I went to Stanislaus my second year. I graduated with honors, got my BA. And then my third year, I did my teaching credential, cancer, and then all my professional clear units my third year. So I graduated with honors in 2 years, and my credential and my clear classes my third, and I was done with school. I'm like, yeah, I'm going back to that.
So what was the moment that you were like, I'm going to start HateDust?
Okay. I had a bunch of friends that were knife makers and weapon makers and stuff. So if you've ever bought like a Gerber or a Benchmade or like some kind of knife at Big Five or Bass Pro or whatever, I probably know one of the guys that designed it, or I know guys that work at the company that produced it. And so that was my circle of friends. And in that circle of friends, there were some of us that were growing chili peppers, which is where my odd name comes from. And so this 1 year, there was a gentleman named Jeremy Horton. Was a knife maker out of West Tennessee. He had a bunch of extra. And when I say hot peppers, I'm not talking about habaneros and stuff. Yeah. I'm talking about all the stuff that's on the scale above a habanero. All the reapers and ghosts and fatalities and all the bizarre stuff, scorpions and like the 5 hottest chilies on earth. And so what they call super hots. So when you get in the category of super hots, it's, like melt your face hot. And so there was a couple of us that were growing peppers, and I had the guys. I had this idea. I had done it, kind of in the middle 90s when I started growing habaneros, when that was like the hottest thing out there. So I told the guys, hey, send me all your excess, and trust me, when you start growing a bunch of chilies, you get a bunch of excess, and especially super hots. Like you can't kind of keep up with eating all that. And so the guys sent me their extra peppers, and I dehydrated them and I ground them in this spice mix that we called HateDust. And it was because your mouth was going to hate you and your butt was going to hate you for eating it. And it was more like it was never meant to be like, it wasn't meant to be a rub or, like it was really meant to be like a dare your buddy to taste this kind of thing. Yeah. But you're dealing with guys that are into like guns and knives. Sure. And they're that's that 25 to 55 demographic. Everything is like bravado and macho and so when you're like, oh yeah, Andrew, you can't eat this, you're like, what do you mean I can't eat that? So they're convincing themselves that they like it. 100%. Yeah. And so I tapped into that pretty hard. Yeah. And so we were going to a trade show in Vegas, and I had kind of caught word that there was a gentleman named Sean Kendrick, who's also a knife maker, who had a niece and nephew who both had cystic fibrosis. Sean wanted to do this fundraiser with he was going to do a fundraiser to try to kind of raise money for that. And so we have another friend who's a jeweler named Rob Baptie. He runs a company called Steel Flame out of Torrance, California. And so Derek makes these little copper dog tags, and he would put like the maker's, mark or symbol or whatever. And these guys could sell these dog tags, and the dog tags were like $20 or something. So if you couldn't afford at that time, let's say $1,000 knife, you could get the little $20 dog tag of your favorite maker. And so it was a cool little niche. And they were super hard to get a hold of. And so Derek had made dog tags for Sean, but Sean's not like I didn't know him real well. And I just said, hey, man, I got this stupid idea. I'm like, how about I do your fundraiser for you? I said, don't take it the wrong way. I'm like, if you want to go out there and, greet 100 people and get them to, buy this thing. I'm like, why don't you let me do it for you? And I'll pair it with these stupid pepper shakers I made. And so we did that. And I stood at a trade show for like 4 hours, and I raised like $6,000. People would be like, how much is it, Rob? And I'd be like, just pay the lady. Well, how much is it? Like, whatever you pay her, just pay her now, And I just sat there and I stiff armed people for 4 hours, and we made like $6,200. I was like, right on. Yeah. So for me, like you've known me for a while, I'm all about like stupid one-off things, right? Like I do dumb stuff all the time. So I just thought it was like this one-off kind of dumb thing that I did. And I'm like, all right, well, that was fun. Figured that out. So we'd put the dog tags with the pepper shaker. And so guys, the average donation for one of them was $60. I was like, wow, that's pretty clever. Right on. So I went home like, hey. And so I had a guy reach out to him, and he was like, hey, I met you at the show. I work for this big commercial advertising company. If you cut me a check for $5,000, I'll deposit it, go to my company, and they'll match me if I make a donation. We'll donate it back. So, Tuesday, the following Monday, instead of having $6,000 or 62, whatever it was, I had $11,250. Wow. That's when I went,
wait a second.
Oh, this is a thing. So word got out in the online community, these knife maker forums and stuff, and so my friend Jeremy was gracious enough to let me use his forum to kind of advertise doing it again. And so we made more of the pepper shakers, and now we raised more money, and I think I raised like 17, 18 grand second go around, but now we've, now we're not at a show, we're doing it through the internet. And I helped Pam Silvera Duarte put on a Make-A-Wish event here in Merced. I helped, kind of give her the base funding, to go out and rent a building, that kind of thing. And I just looked at Pam and I said, hey, like nobody, like I don't need my name on the wall. I don't have an organization to put down on a cocktail napkin or whatever. Like I said, I'm just good with like the Robin Hood aspect of go do this thing. And so we did it. So I did it one more time after that, and then tax season rolled in.
Oh yeah, so then that happened.
And I had given away at that point, like when the next like tax thing rolled around. Like I was already doing it. So let's say I did it for about a year at that point. And I'd kind of made a Facebook forum, and some people had joined, and Kimmy was maybe like 2,000, 2,300. And then I got hit with that first tax bill in like 2015 for the 2014 year.
Oh wow.
And now I had to pay $15,000 in taxes that I gave away. You want to know how to piss off Rob? You want to know how to piss off anybody? Yeah. Wait till you pay $15,000 on money that you gave away. Yeah. And then there was a frustration level. They came through with the people that were around me at the time about I go to the IRS tax code, and I'm thinking I've got to search, and I'm on the first page of the internet with the IRS, and it's rule number 4. You can only give away half of what you make. And so if you think about that for a minute, you're like, huh? What? But in the reality of the situation is that if you're a guy that makes $100,000 a year, which is probably what I made at the time, what's the likelihood that you would give away $50,000? The likelihood is 0. Yeah. They didn't write that rule for me. I'm an anomaly. I'm the guy that, made $104,000 a year and gave away $117,000. I don't exist in the real world.
No.
I'm this weird internet thing.
But there had to be that moment, right? There had to be that moment where you got to make that choice. Like, hey, this I'm hitting an interest here, an interest level here. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you switched gears. You were like, rather than like, hey, here's what I can do and make a crap ton of money. You're like, I'm going to give this to veterans and kids.
Oh yeah.
And so
which I had done from the very, very, very beginning.
Yeah. But why did you stay with that? Like, what is it for you, right? Like, to me, you're a one-man show.
Yeah.
You deal with giving away upwards of $250,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And that requires you to work in your shop nonstop.
A lot. Yeah.
For this very specific purpose of not just helping a community in Merced, but really all over the Central Valley and the world.
Yeah.
What is it that, because at any point in the last 9 years, you could have been like, you know what?
Oh my God, so many points. Yeah.
You know what? I'm done with this. I'm just gonna make the money. Like, I'm gonna make the money, and I'm gonna run. So what is it that has kept you in this game? Because it's not easy. It's hard.
Yeah, I think I felt really disconnected within this community, and we'll talk. Well, I'll expand on that in a second. But really, I lived here, for 20 plus years where I just wasn't civically engaged. Yeah. I don't have kids, so that takes me out of the whole school thing. Mm-hmm. I worked at schools, but I worked, I used to be the juvenile hall principal, and I worked at Valley Community School, and so those aren't schools that I'm not doing athletics on the weekend, and parents aren't super engaged, and it's like a very odd setting. I love my time there, not to diminish it, but it's not like a traditional high school setting where you're doing like FFAs around you and all the sports teams around you, and it's not that school community. And then I went to I left that and I went to primary school. I had TK, kinder, first and second. My parent engagement was awesome. I'm out in front of the school literally every single morning. I talked to every single parent, every kid that came in the door. Like, that part was great, but we're not doing dances and it's still the same thing. Like, you're still kind of, it's still this kind of very basic, isolated thing. So at some point, I realized when I started doing this, before I turned it into a nonprofit because I paid taxes on money I gave away, and that set me off. Yeah, and that's dumb. But I was already doing it, and in that first year of kind of doing it, I recognized two things. I was good at something, and I'm good at checklists. I'm good at working when I shouldn't. I'm good at the grit part. I'm not real good at a lot of other things. And so I recognized the oddball opportunity. And I recognized that there is this unmet need with nonprofits where I had an opportunity to make an impact that wasn't being made. Okay? And so that's a unique thing. Like, there's no your brother runs a nonprofit, a food bank. Food banks, people ask me all the time, hey, like, Rob, my motorcycle club wants to do this and that. Like, what should we donate to? Should we donate to like Wounded Warrior? And they have these national organizations. I'm like, no, they don't need your help. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, you should go to a food bank. Sorry, I didn't mention United Ways.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all right. I don't take offense.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when you think of you think of that as a national organization, sure. when really their impact is local. I don't want to diminish kind of what I'm saying.
Well, to be clear, a good United Way has a local impact, and if you can't relate a local impact to your community, then you're not doing it right. Like, a food bank very clearly relates.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, we're trying to feed seniors and kids right now.
Yeah.
This is why we're raising
right
money.
Here, right now.
Right here, right now.
And so there have been these moments where. I tried to really focus on small things and weird things where I just knew someone was going to realize the impact. They didn't have to know it was me. They didn't have to know. But it's so hard to answer this. There's nothing in me. There's every bit of me that wants to quit every day. I filed my first income tax return at 14 years old. here in California. Lucky me. I've been working 20 hours a week or more on a time clock since I was 12. I've worked multiple jobs most of my life, right? There's a point in my life where my father's business wasn't, my dad was a paint and drywall guy. I used to have to walk to the Owens River, several times a week, and I would eat trout 3-4 days a week. And if I didn't catch trout, guess what?
You didn't eat.
Powdered milk and Tastios from the reservation. I lived next to a Paiute Indian reservation. The res would give me, they'd give me free powdered milk and bags of Tastios, even though I wasn't a tribal member. They would give me, and like, if the res didn't feed me and the river didn't feed me, I wouldn't eat. It was a rough time. Like, people don't see that, So I recognize a couple of things. I recognize that I hit this weird niche. I'm fulfilling needs of. There's an easy way to explain this, actually. I'm fulfilling needs of smaller organizations that don't really have somebody walking in the door writing $10, $15, $20, $25,000 checks.
What is it about the people that you're helping? Because very often, you do help out the food bank, but very often it's the senior brown bag special, but the senior brown bag program. You fund a lot of programs involving youth, kids, veterans. What is it about those groups that keep drawing you back? Because you could easily throw all of your efforts to cats that are roaming around the streets.
God, not my little kitties.
But it feels like you've really centered on.
Andrew laughed at the little kitty statement. I just need you to know what a horrible thing.
I'm awful.
I need for $5 a month. You too could save.
Yeah, do not like cats.
You could easily support Sarah McLachlan's.
He came out with it.
Song.
There it is.
But it feels like you've
hater.
centered around this particular group. So I even see your motto, and I see there's that there is your fuck cancer motto, right? I see that. There seems to be common themes that I feel draw at you and keep you coming back.
Yeah, I think. Let's just be blunt. We live in a community that's, my buddy was out here. Is like, what? There's no economic draw. He's like, what's happened here? And I said, man, you know what? We live in a community that's 65% state or federal subsistence. There is an unending need.
Don't like that.
That was literally just a fire alarm, a burglar alarm.
This is what we do. We just have alarms that go off sometimes.
Boys and girls,
right
the alarms that you hear in the background are the impending invasion of aliens coming from outer space. If you have no idea what I'm referring to, please, I beg of you, go watch Invasion from Mars. It's a fantastic, I don't know if B or C is really the type of movie it is. It's its own unique creature. But each time you hear an alarm like that, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's going to be a one-eyed man in a glass bubble burst through that door at any second. My death is imminent. But I'm here with Andrew, the cat hater. We're going to get through this.
We are. Rob's gone now, so
we can talk trash about Rob.
We can actually just talk for a second. Rob, I should have primed you in advance. Rob, what happens is Rob comes in and he asks all the questions about tell us about the community and about your thing.
Yeah.
I sit here and listen for an hour,
and then process,
and then I ask questions about about you.
Wow. Why am I drinking so much before noon now?
No, I'm not going to ask that because you shared with me, and I no longer care.
Good answer.
But what's the craziest conspiracy theory you believe in?
The craziest conspiracy.
The craziest conspiracy theory that you actually believe in.
The government has hidden alien technology from us forever.
I think it's plausible.
Conspiracy theory number 2, which plays into Rob Hype's rejoining us.
Yep.
Thank you for shutting
Sorry,
up
we got into the Andrew round while you were gone.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
So
that's where we're at anyway.
Alien technology is real. Just hate to tell you. Egyptians didn't build it. They moved in. The Sphinx will tell you. The Sphinx was resurfaced. They didn't build it. Go look it up. Go look up water erosion tables in Europe. Here's number 3, and it's a biggie because Rob Hype's just rejoined us. And he just Well, his wife just had a baby. He was there for like 4 minutes of it.
Sure.
Babies can talk. Babies are able to speak. They are just fascinated by your nonsense and choose not to see what big of an idiot you're going to make out of yourself with that gaga goo goo nonsense. You're the sweetest little thing. You're the cutest little cherub. I love you so much. And that kid is just looking at you like, you idiot. Shut up. That is my biggest conspiracy.
I love it. I think that's absolutely amazing. Incredible.
Babies can talk from birth.
I've
True story.
been willing to
Fact
buy that.
actual.
I've been willing to buy that.
It's probably true. Well, there's whole like philosophies that we're born with complete knowledge. We just have to rediscover it along the way. Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't.
What was the acid trip guy? Was it Leary?
Oh yeah.
Leary
yeah.
and the CIA, the whole talking goats thing. Yeah. The crazy part is that's not even a conspiracy theory. That was real.
That was real.
It was like
Eventually
let's
the
give
government
soldiers
will
enough
reveal.
acid. Yeah. So
the government will reveal all the crazy things that it ever did.
I think Alien Tech. I think I got my buddy. We call Uncle Mike. Mike Aikens, a veteran. That side hustle is he runs a thing called Tragic Skateboard Company, right? And so Mike posted this video the other day, and I think he's like out there by like Richmond, like by the the bridge and the bay and stuff. Dude taped like three UFOs the other morning. And it's just like, hey man, I don't want this to seem crazy, but he's like, for whatever reason, I woke up at 3 a.m, couldn't go back to bed, so I went and had a cup of coffee on the porch. He's like, what are these 3 glowing things out there that literally are moving so unnaturally and in such a weird thing? And people are like, oh, that's Elon Musk's space net. I'm like, no, it's not a straight line of 12 satellites that move in a straight line. I'm like, those things moved independently in weird magical atom, film strip from the 50s, freaking orbs. I'm like, that's not SpaceNet. No. SpaceNet is man-made. It's a big array.
That freaked me out the first time I saw SpaceNet, by the way. Like, I had no idea that he was doing that.
Yeah.
And I saw it. I'm like, what is that?
On?
What is
Why
going
is that
on?
happening? Yeah.
Just the Elon Musk.
The crazy part is all the stuff that's flying around up there that you don't know about.
Man.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the one to agree with that.
Dude. Yeah. Anyways.
What do you got, Andrew?
All right, so here's what I have. A few things. You have chosen a life of uncommon generosity. It's a choice you made. You have started what I can only define as a small cult online. There are people who are very into these things, like, I follow it. Like, I'm a part of the group. I actually watch it with, with amazing fascination.
Yeah.
Wow. And they're like trading for these things and trying to, but you chose this life of generosity. And my question for you is, because we've gone into kind of why you chose it and what your pattern was, but why don't more people choose it? What stands between most people and choosing that life?
It's so easy to answer.
Yeah.
So easy to answer.
Good, because that's what I want to know.
No grit. No grit, no pearl. I'm just going to tell you right now, the amount of people, I have made a lifetime of doing oddball things. I met this guy one time named Rocky Patel, owned a cigar company called Indian Tobacco, and then eventually took on his own name for the company. So he brought Rocky Patel Cigars. So I meet Rocky Patel here in Merced, right? And so he and I get to talking, and he's like, dude, you're a lot to deal with. He's like, you really want to go learn about cigars? And I was like, well, what's that look like? He's like, you should come to Don Lee, Honduras. You should come check out tobacco fields in Honduras and come to my factory and stuff. And I was like, well, how do I do that? And he's like, tell you what, you buy a plane ticket to Dallas. I'll meet you in Dallas. You can come with me. He's like, I take like my big store owners and I take a couple of sales guys down there so they can go learn the industry. You want to go learn the industry? I was like, I'm in. So I go to Don Lee. I go to Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and I fly into a dormant volcano that's got lots of crashed CIA airplanes shoved off the side of the runway.
Okay.
Super scary. Literally, you can look it up. It's literally the hardest landing in the world. You fly, the airplane does a corkscrew. It pitches at 70 degrees and does this toilet bowl spin into a dormant volcano. And so as you're landing and you look out the window, you see airplanes that have crashed and they've just shoved them off the side of the runway. So it's a trip. And then when the plane does land, right, they tell everybody to sit down. You'll see like 6 guys in different seats amongst the airplane, all stand up. They all have cool Ray-Bans. They're all wearing 511 pants and nice gingham shirts, and they've all got the same haircut, and they all magically walk off the airplane at the same time, and they just give the middle finger to TSA or immigration or all security. They walk off, and then you're like, oh, I'm in one of those countries where boogeymen get off the airplane and they go do boogeyman things, and I'm still on the plane. Great. So anyways, I go to Honduras and I go hang out with, Nestor Placencia Sr. and Jr. who own General Cigar and control like 50+% of the world's tobacco crops, and this guy Rocky Patel. So I come back to work on Monday and somebody's like, hey man, saw you took a couple days off last week. Like, what'd you go do? And I'm like, didn't go to Walmart. Didn't go to my, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way at all, but I don't have kids. So like I didn't have to go to my kids' athletics thing. I'm not family connected. There's only my mom who doesn't really talk to me. So like I don't really have any family obligations. Like I have made a lifetime out of doing these oddball one-off things.
Your life is a life of yeses.
Oh, I think that's totally fair. 100%.
Your life is all about the yes.
Dude, let's go.
Yeah.
Me and, so I had cancer in 96, 95, 96, somewhere there, right? It's my second year, I was getting ready to do my teaching credentials. So that summer, I had testicular cancer moved to my stomach tract. And so went through 7 weeks of super intense radiation, burned all my guts, nipple, kneecap and stuff. Still have the tattoos and all that. They tattoo 4 dots on you to line the laser up with. And so, anyways, so I kind of get through that, and I had this buddy of mine who was like, hey man, let's take a road trip. And so we took this road trip that went through a bunch of states, Arizona, Colorado, and Wyoming, and Idaho, and Utah, and NorCal, and Montana, and stuff. And so when we're in Yellowstone, so you say a life of yeses, we're in Yellowstone National Park. And so I think that when I get to Yellowstone, I'm going to see like salmon jumping out of the river and Bigfoot and bison goring tourists. I'm like, please let me see a bison goring tourist. Please. Right? And so I see none of those things. And so we get to Old Faithful. And so I think in my head, I think of like seeing Old Faithful in an encyclopedia for kids that, if you don't know, before the internet, there were books that had knowledge and information in them. They were called encyclopedias. And so you couldn't look up Old Faithful and see a video and have, somebody narrate what it does. You read about it in a book. And so I'm thinking I'm going to have to like go on this like arduous hike, and I'm going to look down into a valley, and down below, you could see Old Faithful, which is a geyser, means it shoots hot boiling water, out of the earth. Like, and instead I show up and there's an effing Baskin Robbins.
We have an explicit rating. You can
there's a parking lot the size of Disneyland. Right. There are literally bleacher seats around this mound, and there's this giant ass ranger station. And I'm like, I looked at my buddy and I'm like, we drove 4 days in a row to get to this. I'm like,
this is not
bro. I'm not even getting out of the truck. And he's like, come on. This guy's name was Charles Ball, Chuck Ball, Chuck Ball. We get to the edge of the thing, and there's just there's just all these families, and they're doing nothing wrong. Like I really kind of don't care about other people's thing, but there's an absurdity to me when you're sitting in bleacher seats, and I hear the lady go, Andrew, what time do they set off the geyser? And I'm like, this lady thinks that they hit a switch. And in my head, I was effing done. I was like, uh-oh. And so, in a lifetime of yeses, Charles Ball looks at me and he recognizes that I've hit my limit. And he takes advantage of a lifetime of yeses, and he goes, you won't. And what I failed to mention is that there's this little rope barrier that's about 8 inches high around the base of the geyser. They have literally pounded posts into the ground, and about 8 inches off the ground, there's this stupid little rope that is the barrier that keeps you from boiling yourself alive on this mound of molten earth that spits out water whenever Harold sets off the switch. But Harold's not setting off the switch. And so I look at Charles Ball and I go, bet. And he goes, a quarter. I said, make it a dime. And as soon as I said, make it a dime, the dude next to him goes, what are you guys talking about? And I go, deuces. And I hike across the top of Old Faithful. And I take about 6 steps in. Harold, he's ruining our vacation. I'm like, oh my God. And there's all these people, the cameras are on and everybody's, and I go hot stepping it over the top of this geyser. And so in my moment of yes, the ground gurgles underneath me and my butt snaps shut and grit turns into a pearl and I hightail it over the top of this thing and I get to the other side where I again step over a 8-inch stupid piece of rope onto a footpath and I'm like, I just in front of 1,000 people crossed, this national monument. I'm like, I'm a gangster. And I see him. He's wearing a light blue shirt and jeans and a Farm Aid hat. I'm like, shit, that's a Farm Aid hat. He's talking about me. And here comes like Ranger Rick out of the woods, but he's like no uniform. He's like just, just like a tourist. But he's got like the CB whip antenna off of his backpack and he's got the CIA earpiece in and stuff. And he's like, suspect is not so much smaller than, like 6 foot, 200 pounds. And, and like he's, it's like 1 Adam 12. We have the suspect in hand. I'm like, uh-oh, I'm host. I should have said no. And instead, what I do is I say, yes, we're going to take advantage of this. I look at Ranger Rick and I hit the 180. Snap turn, just like the military taught me. Heels together, 180, opposite direction, on command. I march right towards Ranger Sally. 5'4", petite, nice thing. It's like, excuse me, sir. And I'm like, oh my God, Ranger Sally, I can't believe I just did that. That's the most stupidest thing I've ever done in my life. And I march past her at 107 miles an hour. Motor right by her, man. I'm just blow by her. And she's behind me. She's like, sir. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the dumbest thing I've ever done. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, you guys should probably arrest me. I don't know what I'm doing now. And I just keep speed walking, talking like a madman. I mean, I did everything but like cover myself and, my own feces to like act like a crazy person, right? Like to try to get parole or whatever. And I just kept going. And in all of God's great natural fury, Old Faithful erupts as if on cue. Right? Uh-huh. And then like 12 seconds later, it's done. Thank God Harold hit the switch, right? So, man, and now, because they're Americans and they have an attention span of a gnat and they don't say yes when they should, everybody's just flood clearing the bleachers the second after this thing is, after the water's not even done hitting the ground. These people are like, all right, got the picture, got to go, right? And so now I've got a crowd to work with, man, and I start zigzagging through the crowd, and I look at I go by Charles Ball, and I hit Chuck, and I'm like, get the truck, and I just keep zigzagging through people. I'm like the fox and the hounds. Like I circle back on the Rangers, and then come back behind them again, and go, you can't get me, and I book it in the parking lot. And my buddy's got the little red Ford Ranger, fired up, and we jump in the truck, and off we drive. And we're like, we're cackling, we're high-fiving each other. He's like, that was great, this thing. I'm like, you should have bet me, you owe me a dime, And so as we're driving along, we come up to this field, and there's these bison out in the field, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to see a tourist get gored. This is going to be the best day ever, right? I'm like, slow down. And we start to slow down, and there's a string of cars behind us, there's a string of cars in front of us, and from like 4 cars back, out pops the Ranger Rick truck, the green truck of death, speeds up to our door, full on a loudspeaker, goes, gentlemen, do not stop driving. And we're like, and here's the Rangers, and they are, dude, you can see the anger on their face, dude. And so we don't stop driving, and they pull in right behind us, and every couple of minutes they're like, continue to drive, and then they're like, turn. So we get to this like intersection, and you can turn right or left, and so we turn, and so we turn north towards Montana. So we end up getting escorted all the way to the north gate of Yellowstone. Dude, dude, like 40 miles. These guys are behind us. Oh, wow. Yellowstone's huge, right?
Yeah.
And so literally these guys, and so we get, out the gate, and we end up going to Bozeman, Montana, which is, flat, just not river runs through it, cool Montana, but like old 50s derelict, flat, dead earth Montana. And and I looked at Charles Bond, and I go, I shouldn't have said yes.
And that's how you got banned from Yellowstone.
And that is literally how I got banned from a national park.
Literally kicked out of the state.
Yeah.
Well, finish your drink. I think we're done.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I think.
No, you guys slam it. No, I'm watching. You guys slam it. Yeah. You guys slam it.
Slam? There's no slam. Dude, you never even refilled it. Andrew and I slammed like. He and I refilled like 4 times while you were having an alarm.
I know. You're better than I am.
No,
both of you.
There's no better.
Yeah, just different.
It's different. It's different.